Good morning. Welcome back, everybody. So this morning we are going to talk about the importance and significance of protecting childhood, the innocence and just the beauty of a childhood. And if you had a childhood that was protected, you may not realize how important this is. But if you, like me, were the victim of childhood sexual abuse, you understand the significance and the importance of protecting childhood. Because when you experience traumatic things as a child, it doesn't just impact your childhood. It impacts the entire rest of your life, and if unhealed, for generations to come. And so we are very excited to have Greg Mattis here with us to talk about protecting childhood, both from a personal perspective as a foster and adoptive parent, but also as a detective who is responsible for investigating crimes against children. And so we are going to start, before Greg comes up, we are going to play a video. These are two women that live to give hope, and I personally have worked directly with as their children were sexually abused, and as a result, either wound up in foster care or they were already in their home as a foster child.
We were married for 32 years at the time, and he was a good Christian person. We went to church every Sunday, and he'd make sure we didn't miss. I would have never, ever dreamed that he was ever able to do what he did.
He appeared to be an amazing father. We were married for 10 years when everything came to light. He seemed to be a good dad. He loved the kids. He made sure they had everything that they needed. He wanted to be at all of their school functions, wanted them to be involved in all the things he didn't get to be involved in as a child.
We did have struggled through pornography a lot. We went even seen a counselor, and when the second time when I had called him, I told him it was over. He did tell me he was sexually abused as a child. I went ahead and we got some more help. The doctor did tell them that he was probably going to end up doing something if he didn't get help. My husband didn't like that idea, so he quit seeing him. I would not have believed him. We even talked about different people that had done stuff like that, and I would never thought it at all if I didn't find the proof and had to confront him on that. I would have never believed him. I would think he would not be capable of doing this.
I also would not have thought he was capable. We would talk about things that came up on the news, and it was like, how does this happen? And it was a full conversation, and he would go along with the conversation, how bad these people were, that they needed help, and I never would have guessed. But, people hide things, and they tell you what makes you believe them. I didn't think it was possible within my own home, because you trust the person that you're with, and you see what they let you see. I just never would have thought that it could have happened. Our circle was small. We didn't let our kids go stay the night at a lot of places. And you assume your husband, the father of your children, is a safe person. You don't automatically assume that they are the predator that you're trying to keep your kids safe from by not letting them go and stay at other places.
would like people to understand how abusers present themselves is that you really don't know. They look like everyday people. They're Christian people, they're good people, they're part of the community, they're successful people. It's like you can't judge a book by its cover. You just will not know, but do look for different things. If you think things are out of place by any means, if you don't think things seem right, if you see a guy being too close to a girl, you get gut feelings. And when you get one of those gut feelings, you need to listen to it. Talk to the child if you feel any uneasiness at all and don't think things are right. In my situation, the child had been asked about 5 different times by 3 different people, me including, and that she always said no. You don't realize some of these kids has been going through so much their whole life, they're too scared to tell the truth.
I just wish that people would not let their personal relationships get in the way of thinking that it's not possible, because there's no black and white on who is capable of doing this. They are very good at manipulating. Sometimes they're good with words, and sometimes they just blend in. You just never know. You never know who's capable of sexually abusing a child. And I believe that when we talk to our kids about safety, if we've never experienced sexual abuse, that's not something that we think to talk to our kids about before it's happened. We think about car seat safety. Are you buckled? We think about if there were a fire, what would we do? But we don't think about the things that we haven't experienced, that isn't a part of what would be a typical everyday concern.
We try to teach our kids about safety, about sexual, about if anybody ever touch you. The one thing that I've always told my kids, has your father touched you wrong? Has I touched you wrong? Has any of your aunts or uncles touched you wrong? I try to make it more personal, even though I never believed that would happen. I wanted to make sure if even they felt uncomfortable with me, we need to know. But when you say for everybody, you mention father, mother, brother, uncle, any of that, it helps them to be able to maybe tell the truth and let you know if you're considering everybody and not just outside people.
I feel like with prevention, it's an important thing that even though we think it couldn't happen to us, that these are conversations that we do have with our kids. It's not something that I remember ever thinking I needed to talk to my kids about. You know, you see it on the news and you think, that's terrible, but you never think it's something you gotta be concerned with your own kids. And so I say just, having those conversations with your kids and asking, even the people that you think are safe people, if they're comfortable with them, if they've ever felt like someone was inappropriate with them, reading the books with them that talk about these kinds of things, just so they are aware that these things happen and we can't do anything to help if we don't know. Sexual abuse is real and it's everywhere. It is everywhere. It's in the churches, it's in the schools, it's in the community. And just so they know that they are free to talk to you and that you will do what you need to keep them safe.
Well, that definitely quieted the room. We want you to pay attention, ask questions. Child sexual abuse can be prevented. And to talk to us about that and give us more hope is Greg Mattis.
Good morning, everybody. Real quick, Laura pointed this out to me. Everybody's got one of these cards. And we're asking you to fill it out, check one of the boxes, and put it over here in this little wooden box, okay? There's one on here everybody can do, and that's pray. To start off, let me give you a little bit of a background about myself. 22 years I've been involved in public safety or public service. From firefighter, EMT, corrections, military service, which was infantry, which is a lot different than a lot of people who serve in the military. Our units were tasked out for hunting down bad people. Okay. I was very proficient at that. Then after retiring out of the military medically, I always had a drive and a pull towards law enforcement, and I got offered that opportunity. So I'm in my 8th year. 6 years I served here in Laclede County. I am now at Pulaski County as a detective of child crimes. Most people, even in law enforcement, don't want to touch that, and it's very understandable. I deal with the evil of all evils. Children are our most precious gift and resource from the Lord, and I will argue that on a hill and die on that. When Sheriff Ball took office in Pulaski County, he tapped me on the shoulder for that, and I said, absolutely not. I said, I don't know how to deal with those people other than how we dealt with them overseas, and that was swiftly. But my wonderful wife, Shauna, and I adopted a little boy who was taken advantage of brutally. Okay? His perpetrator is sitting in jail. Our criminal justice system, which means justice for criminals, in my opinion, gave him a 120-day shock, which he failed. So he's serving out the remainder of his 7-year sentence for physically, sexually beating, molesting, and making child pornography with him. 7 years, folks. Not justice. They failed my little boy. Now, the trauma that came with him, you wouldn't know, because he is a phenomenal 9-year-old child right now. He's my buddy. He's my shadow. But in all of this, my wife and I have studied the effects of trauma on children, and we see it each and every day. Now I'll go into what I do as a detective. So I started around February 26th as a detective for Pulaski County, and we are now September 13th. I counted up all my cases the other day. 40 cases. And that's not just one victim in those cases. Some of them have multiple victims. That means I average one a week. Average. Some weeks I get 3, some weeks I get none. And it takes me on average about 3 months to investigate every case. On my desk right now, I've got about, I think I've dwindled it down to 18 open cases. Okay, and through that waiting, these kids are traumatized. And most of the perpetrators are family members. And it's not just males. I've got just as many female perpetrators. Okay, so don't be naive to that. There are females out there that take advantage of children. I'm going to get real raw and real if you guys will allow me to. I don't trust anybody with my children. Now I say that with a caveat. There are certain people I do trust, and Shauna trusts. But if you're new into our life, I'm very skeptical of you. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care who you proclaim you are. Those are my children that God gave me to protect. And I will do it with a vengeance and amount of violence that would make the devil himself turn his head, because God gave them to us. And in saying that, there's not much help out there for these kids when they go through this. It's very generic. It's very surfacey. So that's where I'm asking you to pray for these children. Okay? And the system traumatizes them on top of that. Sometimes they remove them from the home because it was a parent, or the perpetrator lives within the home. Could be a cousin, could be an uncle, grandfather, grandmother, aunt. What did that child do to be removed from their stability? Nothing. But they're going to re-victimize them. I got a real quick question here, because we got a whole different side of this too. We've got strangers victimizing kids over the web. How many of you in here have children? Raise a hand. I require participation. How many of you have children between the ages of 5 and 17? How many of those children have cell phones? Those of you who got your hands raised, I'm going to ask you a question and I need an answer. Why? Okay. Does your child have a smartphone? Get them a flip phone. I don't care what limits you put on it, what you do. And I'm not saying your child would do this, okay, but I see this every day. A smartphone in the hands of a child is detrimental. I investigate crimes that happen over the internet. Okay, they think they're talking to somebody that's safe. They're not. I've got 3 cases on my desk just in the past month of sexting. And it all started out, they were on an app, and there's apps that are hidden, they're disguised, and it always leads to, send me a photo. And then it just compiles from there. Your child does not need a smartphone. Get them the cheapest flip phone you can. If you require your child to have a flip phone or a phone, get them a flip phone that does not have internet access. If they have tablets at home, inspect them. Get into their search history. All that. You're the parent. Because if you're not, you're opening up your kid for evil to come into their lives. And that's all it is. It's pure evil. What I deal with, it's not flesh and blood, it's spiritual. Do you know, in all the crimes we deal with, people who are addicted to drugs can be rehabilitated. Thieves can be rehabilitated. All crimes, people who perpetrate them can be rehabilitated. You know what one that cannot? Sexual predators. Once a sexual predator, always a sexual predator, and I will argue that until I die. Why? Because I see it. For 22 years, I've watched it. What are you willing to do to protect your child? And here's the thing, we're dealing with teenagers. We were all teenagers. We tried to get away with stuff. I did. I probably drove my mom and dad crazy. That's probably why they got gray hair. There's some good kids out there that get sucked into bad things. And it's our responsibility as adults, as parents, as family members, as church members, to watch out for those kids. One of the things that Laura asked me to talk about was the effect of trauma on kids. And I'm going to put my lovely bride on the spot here. because she's done much more research on this than I have. And if she would, and you will allow me, I will ask her to come to the stage. She has been she has been my bride. Next Friday will be 31 years. We are high school sweethearts. Did not start that way, but I won her over. So this is my wonderful wife, Shauna Mattis.
What do you want me to talk about? I am, so to tell you a little bit about me, I started 25 years ago as a massage therapist. Really quickly learned that that wasn't enough to help people. Like, yeah, it's nice and there's therapeutic effects. So quickly I started learning about what our body does with the stress that we carry. And so now 25 years into this, I've always claimed and I've always aligned with somatic therapy. And so that's a big kind of buzzword right now. Somatic therapy basically takes physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and it addresses all of it. Because a great book is called The Body Keeps the Score. Everybody's kind of heard of it at this point. Literally inside our bodies, whether we recall it or not, our body stores every single thing that has happened to us, including myself. And there's some really powerful therapies that are out there. A couple weeks ago, I went to the women's worship night at First Baptist, and I just want to share something that God revealed to me about myself. He gave me a picture of my heart that was, and it was just on this really pretty little plate. And he started taking it, and he was just taking it, and this sounds, and don't think of this gross, but he was very gently filleting little tiny pieces of my heart, so paper thin so you could see it. And he would identify a little like pebble or piece of gravel, and he took a pair of tweezers and he would take that out. And that's what happens in our body, is somewhere in us. It's very close to being proven scientifically that almost all disease is stored trauma of some way in our body. So that's the work that I do as a somatic therapist. I work with the cranial system, the central nervous system directly. I do a therapy called Splunkna, which incorporates EMDR, thought field therapy, tapping, and it's a way for bodies to, in a safe space without reliving it, because talk therapy can go so far. Talk therapy involves your left brain. Healing involves your right brain. So it calms the left brain so the right brain can do the creative work of attaching and expressing what it is without having to relive the situation and trauma. So that's what I do. I work with adults, children, babies, anybody, because trauma can start at birth. I would say 90% of the women that I work with and see have either trauma from their own birth, which would be everyone, because can be a traumatic experience, or trauma from birthing their children. And women who have not been able to have children, they have stored trauma in their body. So being able to work with kids in foster care, and I would say that I have used everything I have ever learned in my entire career. I've utilized that knowledge in every child that has been in my home. And so just being aware that trauma is stored in our bodies, all of us, and it's going to present in really different ways. Greg and I both have had to work through trauma from childhood sexual abuse that we didn't even remember. And we've been able to work through that process together. And as we've learned more through foster care, that I feel like I'm talking in circles because I was not prepared for this. That there's definitely different ways to do that. But one of the things that we do to protect our kids is, like you said, they don't go places. And that may seem strange to people, and that may seem not fair, but having the experience in our lives that we've had, I'm going to protect them at all costs. And like the videos, and like he said, it's people that you know. And we have to protect our kids, all of the kids. I've had this weird convergence, and I don't know how this applies, and maybe somebody needs to hear it. I got up this morning at 5:30, and I had this picture of Charlie Kirk and how he fought relentlessly to protect family. That was his heart, is to protect family. And there's a statistic that I always say, and this goes back to what Melissa and Hannah talked about. The church, foster care should never have been a state system. Biblically, it's designed to be a church system. We were charged as followers of Jesus to care for orphans and widows in their times of need. What that looks like in Laclede County, I don't have the exact numbers because I haven't looked recently, but a couple years ago I did the numbers. If less than one family in less than one church, Bible-professing, believing church, less than one family in less than one church in Laclede County took less than one child, there would be no children dangling in the foster care system in Laclede County. Less than one family in less than one church took less than one child. And then the church rallied around that family, that load would be light. And we could serve the families of the foster children. There's changes that need to be made, and the changes that happen are like what Charlie Kirk said, it starts in the heart. I'm gonna tell you about my Jesus. Because that's where that change is gonna happen, is I'm gonna tell you about my Jesus. And there is a caveat, one little caveat, is I believe Jesus can change anybody. Statistically, sexual predators don't change. Jesus can change anybody, he knows that, he agrees with that. But the statistics is they cannot be rehabbed. But if less than one family took less than one child, and the church rallied around, that load would be very light. And then we can heal the trauma by giving them Jesus. That's the only answer to the trauma that's in children and us, is Jesus. There's one answer. That's all I have to give you. Silver and gold have I none. Silver and gold have I none, but what I do have, I can give you. And so, and also in protecting children, by helping them deal safely with their trauma in a safe space, there's a bunch of therapies out there that people don't know anything about. That they're inexpensive, they're easy to access, they're not covered by insurance. I can probably tell you every therapist that I know that does somatic work, if you call and say, hey, I've got this foster kid, they will say, bring him in. You're not gonna pay for it. You're gonna say, bring him in, let me help you. Because it's a safe place and it's non-invasive, and they will share things and things will come up that they would not be able to tell in talk therapy because it's too hard or because they don't remember and they can't. They can't, so your left brain will shut down and it's like, nope, I'm not going there, I'm not gonna remember that. But when they're in a safe place, sometimes, like with somebody that they just perceive and feel safe, I think, on the video, she said, go with your gut. Do not ignore that instinct. There's a gift of fear that God gives us. There's a gift of intuition that God gives us. We've been conditioned for decades now, oh, it's fine, you're just being extreme. Oh, it's fine, you're just being overprotective. Don't be a helicopter parent. Don't do this, don't do that. It's fine. They need to be socialized here. They need to be with their friends here. There is very few experiences, and we have, our older kids are in their 30s. And we were like this with them, and we got a lot of pushback because we didn't do overnights anywhere. We were very careful because I'm not gonna risk my kids. And so even now, I mean, we told our kids from the beginning, we don't do overnights, play dates here. And when those families offer to support you, it needs to be in an open area because everything can look good on the surface, but you don't know. So we don't have babysitters. We don't ever get to go out because we don't leave our kids with people, because we are hyper aware, probably because of his job, and he sees the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. But I'm gonna protect my kids at all costs. And I think he said something that made me remember too, and often it's not just fighting to keep the kids away from their families, it's fighting to keep them going towards the family that they need to be with, and that's fighting against the system, where the system is like, nope, they're gonna go here, nope, they're gonna go here. We just had this fight on Thursday. Like just this Thursday, we had this fight. I was on one meeting, Greg was on another. I fought for him this way, I fought for him this way. We're fighting for them to go in the direction for the kid to have stability and get to a safe family member. It's not always to keep the kid. Like people, because we've adopted two, people always assume, you know, you just want to keep the kids. I'm 52, I don't need any more little kids. But it's fighting against the system for the safety of the child and the best interest of the child. And it's not always gonna look like what the team wants or what the law says, and we're gonna fight and push back. And that's protecting the kids, is I'm gonna fight, it's for the kids. Because who's the greatest in God's kingdom? These little children. And that's our job, is to protect them. It's the church's job. So I have no idea if that's what you wanted me to talk about. I don't know, maybe somebody got something, but that's what you get for no preparation.
That's what I deal with at home. She's always got something to say, and I love it. So in my job, I deal with children's division almost daily. And I'm going to preface what I'm about to say with this. There are some really good people that work in children's division. Okay? But the system is beyond broke. These good people that work in the system are hogtied by politicians. And we've got some good politicians. We just had two up here. Okay? But overall, the system is broken and needs overhauled drastically. So those good people that work in the system can do what needs to be done. I have been on calls where I have escorted some of the bad people that work for Children's Division out of the homes they're investigating. Who here thinks that Children's Division has any power, any authority? I'm here to tell you they have none. There are three people, three entities that can remove a child from a home. Us as law enforcement, a doctor, and a judge. I've had children's investigators tell me they will write a letter to the judge to remove the kids from the home. I said, write that letter, and I'll be visiting you, and I'll let you eat 3 squares and have an orange outfit for as long as I can make you have that. Because there are children that don't need to be removed from homes. On the other end of that, we have children that do need to be removed from homes, okay? One of the biggest things I see, reasons I remove kids from homes, it's not economic reasons. Most of it is substance abuse, the condition of the home. I'm sorry, when I walk into a home and I watch the floor move with cockroaches, when I see maggots on the mounds of dirty dishes, I'm going to take your kid. That is deplorable. I don't care if you have a hole in your floor that you've got coned off so nobody falls through it because you can't afford to fix that hole right now. If your kid has a clean living environment, has food readily available, and has a roof over their head, and you treat them like they're your children, your kids are safe at home. And I will contact somebody to come fix that hole in your floor if I don't do it myself. Thursday, I had court. Been working on a case. I don't want to share too much of my case stories. 2 girls, beautiful young girls. They are now 10 and 12. Been going through years of sexual abuse by a family member who lived on their property, not in their house, lived in a separate dwelling. This person that is the perpetrator should have been one of the most protective people in their life, but he took advantage of them. Yesterday, before I left work, the warrant came down from him because I had to go in front of a grand jury. I have never seen a grand jury squirm, make audible noises, and just be totally disgusted by the case. Took me a little over 3 months to investigate this. I had the mother and father of these children emailing me, calling me daily, getting really ugly with me because I hadn't completed it. But those of us in law enforcement investigate this. We want to have an ironclad case when we go to the jury, go to the judge. I got 6 felony convictions, or 6 felonies charged on him. 2 of them require life in prison without the chance of parole. He is now sitting in our jail. I had what we call our road dogs, so it's guys out on the road. And I work with some amazing deputies. They went and found him, and he is sitting in our correction facility as of right now. Okay? I called the mother when the warrant came down, the warrants. He got a $250,000 cash assurity, so that means he's got to come up with $25,000 and a bondsman. He doesn't have it, nor will he. That's why I do what I do. He is going to spend the rest of his natural life in prison and never be able to victimize a child again. These cases, if you get involved with them, understand the detective is going through everything with a lice comb. We are interviewing people. We are looking at things. We're going to forensic interviews with the children. And there's something a lot of you don't know. We have some specialists in our communities that they are trained to forensically interview children. I cannot, by law. I cannot talk to my victims about what happened to them, except for the initial when they come in to report it. Once they disclose something to a deputy, a police officer, we automatically have to get Children's Division involved. We have to hotline it. Then we set up a forensic interview. I am at that facility pretty much once a week, listening to these kids disclose what has happened to them. Most of you, it would give you nightmares. Folks, we're out there working hard for these kids, for the families. And it's not just the kids, we're working for the families too. But when I called that mother who had been on my hind end for 3 months, telling me how worthless I was lazy. When I called her, I kind of had a little bit of a, but she started crying on the phone. She said, "Thank you. Thank you. I understand now why it took so long." She doesn't, but in the end, it was worth it to her. Be gracious towards your law enforcement. Be gracious towards the Children's Division investigators. Be gracious towards the courts and the juries. If you've ever sat on a jury on a case like this, it will give you nightmares. It will disgust you. But there's some good people out there working for these children. Now I want to open it up. I don't know where we are on time. Does anybody have any questions for me? It could be about my job. Sean and I have been foster parents for 10 years. We've adopted 2. We have 3. Oh, wait, hold on. Hold your questions.
Just when he was talking about the interviewer, when the children come into care, the interviewers, if there's been sexual abuse and they have the specialized interview, it's really important to protect the kids and the integrity. Don't ask them all the questions when they come into your home. Like, you just love them. Do not ask them all the questions. And if something comes out, I know it is so frustrating because you're like, do I hotline? Do I not hotline? Do I hotline it? If they don't do anything with it, it's on them. but they have the call, it's got a paper trail started. But do not bombard the child with questions. Don't go digging. Like, just bring them in, love them, and give them time. And I promise they're going to disclose something if something happened. But don't, like, compromise the integrity of the case by probing them with questions. That was the only thing I thought of about that.
Real quick before your questions, I want to let you know this. The kind of foster parents we are, the kind of man I am, when I am at work, I am very type A personality. Okay, outside of work, I like to have fun, I like to joke, but when I have this badge on, I'm a pit bull. I hate child predators. Number one, I was a victim. When I disclosed, I got a high five because she was a beautiful older girl, babysitter. I got a high five, folks. Okay, I didn't realize how disgusting that was until I was an adult. The way that we've done this, I've had the guardian ad litem go to the sheriff and ask for my post license. I've had the attorneys go to the sheriff and ask for my badge. Because there's one thing I will do. Everybody involved in a case, I will hold their feet to the fire. And when you call them out for not doing their job for the best interest of a child, they get offended. I don't care about their feelings. I don't care about their touchy-feely heart, okay? God made me the man I am. Let me give you the definition of my name. My name is Gregory. Look it up. Vigilant watchman and protector. I take that seriously. Okay. Has anybody got any questions? Please, come on. I want to answer. Yes, sir.
So my background's pretty similar to yours. 8 years in the infantry.
God bless you.
And then 22 years as a firefighter paramedic. So I've become just as jaded as you are.
Yes, sir.
I remember going on calls for child abuse, sexual abuse. And as a firefighter, we're required to report it on the spot. What would happen is CPS would come pick up the kid. Within a month, we're back at the same house for the same deal. Because on the surface, reunification is a nice thing. On paper, it looks great. We went to one 5 times and the kid ended up being killed. What can I do, because I currently work for Lebanon Fire Department, what can I do short of kicking teeth down throat? What can I do to push to no, you're not sending this kid back? And you know as well as I do, I'm tied by HIPAA laws. I'm tied by every restraint in the world to fight for this kid. Is there anything in this state that I can do in the position I'm in to be an advocate to say, no, this is what I've seen. This is what is going on?
First of all, thank you for your service, sir. Brother, okay? The state of Missouri has a policy of reunification at all cost, okay? I do not agree with that. Those 2 wonderful young ladies that spoke before me, bombard them, okay? That's who makes the change. For you and I at our level, when Children's Division comes and removes that child, get that person's name. Contact them. You bug them until they quit answering your phone calls or your emails. Be a thorn in their side. Okay? I am. Get to know the law enforcement officers that are there. Okay? That are working that case with you. Communicate with them. Find out where the kid's at, what's going on. Be that person that the system hates. Yeah, I know you can. I know you can. We're wired the same. I know you can. And take pride in that, okay? Because you're fighting for that child. Same thing. I've watched kids be removed from the same house over and over and over again. And the state says, oh, we got to reunify them. Well, first of all, those parents had no business reproducing. I'm sorry, I'm going to get raw, okay? And they're pieces of trash as parents. They don't deserve those kids back. Those kids deserve to be put in a home where they are loved, cared for, and protected. That's our job to make sure that's starting to happen. And I know we get hamstringed, and I know it's frustrating. I'm in a church, so I can't say what I want to say. Okay? Just be that guy. And pray. Okay? Be that guy. It feels good to be that guy sometimes.
I can't say it either. My pastor's stating right
Yeah. We would probably be both in his office. Okay? I am that guy, even as law enforcement officer. Okay? And I probably have a little different avenue than you do as a firefighter. Okay? Because I can walk into Children's Division. I'm not saying you can't. You probably should. Okay? I've got my fire axe from the academy. That pointy little end on it would work good on some of these people. Okay? Yeah, absolutely. Be bold. Be loud. Okay? You're probably going to get some pushback from your higher ups. Push them back. Okay? I get told to rein it in sometimes when we have meetings at our office. We have a big conference room where Children's Division comes in, attorneys come in, prosecutor comes in, and we go over cases. My chief deputy tells me a lot, hey, don't be Greg in there. Who else am I supposed to be? You know, so when these cases come up and they start asking questions, I'm like, no, this is why, this is it, and you have dropped the ball. Because they all like to point fingers at us because we have the open case. Well, sometimes I have to rely on these other people to help me with this case, and they drop the ball. So to answer your question, like I said, be that guy. And if you need help being that guy, see me after this. I'll give you my personal phone number, and I'll be that guy here in Laclede County. Because I still do have a role here. I am a deputy coroner here. So yeah, reach out to me. I know a lot of your brothers. Like I said, I worked here for 6 years. So, anybody else? Please ask questions. Yes, ma'am. They're in the back.
Thank you. So we are Bobcat Fighters Against Child Abuse. If you don't have, oh sorry, I'm a teacher. I don't really need this, but I'll use it.
I don't really need one either. I can get very loud.
And now y'all are in trouble because give a teacher a microphone. Sorry, Shawnee. I talked to her like, come meet with me for 5 minutes. 2 hours later. So first of all, I don't believe in reunification because you cannot unify something that wasn't unified to begin with. So anyway, sorry, I had to say that. We, as an agency, empower children to not be afraid of the world in which they live. One of the things that we all too frequently have to do is go to court. Knowing forensically the examinations that happen in STIR, you may not have an answer to this, but why do we go through the forensic interviews with the children? And God bless those people that do that work. We couldn't do it. Why do they still have to testify? And is there ever a provision in Missouri for them to not have to testify based on the quality, quantity, severity, etc. of a forensic interview?
Very good question. To answer your question, the system. We have defense attorneys that are state supplied to some of these perpetrators that do not think the way that most of us in this room think. Like I said before, it's called the criminal justice system. It's not called the victim justice system. I do not think, me personally, after giving a forensic interview, the child should have to take the stand and face their abuser. We are heaping trauma upon trauma. Usually it comes down to the judge. Okay, and we do have a phenomenal judge here in this circuit. He has become a personal friend of mine. And I believe he's got the best interests of children at heart. A lot of that is taken care of in what they call the suppression hearing, where the attorneys get together and they fight for what is going to be suppressed, so not talked about in the courtroom, and what can be. Defense attorneys love to get child victims on the stand and berate them. Okay, I feel that there's only one way to deal with that, and society kind of frowns upon it. That's what I've got for your answer. I hope I answered that, but it's a broken system.
And that would back us out of a volunteer job if we weren't treating children.
Absolutely. And God bless you guys for what you do. I met with you all when I was campaigning to run for sheriff here, and you have a phenomenal group. And
We need more. We need more. Oh, we need more. We need more people. So, sir over there with the military, if you're riding a bike, come see us.
real quick, before the next question, do you all understand that this 26th Circuit does not allow CASA for child victims?
That's another thing that we can do is collectively, there are lots of individual foster parents who have been begging for CASA to be here we've been foster parents for 11 years. We've been begging for 11 years and we get told no. So we have a CASA representative here. Collectively, together, we can be a force that can bring CASA here. They are a wonderful organization that is desperately needed for the kids in the 26th Circuit.
Child,
Yeah, here we go.
Hi, yeah, I'm Alana Hickman. I work for the Missouri CASA Association. CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates. So we have community volunteers who are appointed to child abuse and neglect cases, and they are the advocates for the children. They are there to advocate solely for best interest for the kiddos. That often does support families, like you mentioned earlier, that if we are advocating for family therapy, that's gonna benefit the kid, that's gonna benefit everyone. And so our volunteers, go through training, and then are supported by staff at the CASA program as they go through the case with the kiddos. We have volunteers that serve, oh my gosh, I think in one of my counties, we've had a person that's been a CASA volunteer for 25 years. We have people who see children through foster placement move after move after move. We heard people earlier talking about consistency. That's what CASA provides. Our volunteer experience is wildly different than a lot of other ones. And the big benefit of that, the unique part of that, is that our volunteers are working and walking with these kiddos through the entire process. You really don't see CASA turnover on cases near as often as you see some of the other players who are overloaded, whatever reason, what have you. And so, yeah, we are working as best we can to get here. We have to have a number of different supports and conversations for that to happen, and it's been happening here for a long time. I know Laura has contacted our office for a long time to try to get CASA here, but it's not up to us where we go. We have to have support from the judiciary. We love to have support from Children's Division, love to have it from the juvenile office, all of that. So yeah, we have our sights on you guys real big because we hear over and over and over how much is needed here. But yes, I'm here today. Come ask me more and more questions, or I can share whatever else y'all want to know. But yes, we have you guys in our sights, and we really love to be here to help serve.
And yes, so the booths are all set up in the zone. So when you walk out the doors and you take a left, you just keep going until you can't go any further. And that's where CASA has a booth set up, and BACA has a booth set up, and so many different organizations, so that you can find out more, the supports that exist, and how we can all work together, and where our role is, and what yes we are going to give. And it might be more than one. So thank you, Greg, very, very much.
Was there one more question here?
It was kind of more of a comment that.
No, please.
Talking about the forensic interviews and stuff like that, and you know I don't need that. Oh, okay. Just kind of touching base on what your wife said, that it is, I think, especially with newer foster parents that haven't dealt with it, that child discloses, and in our human brains, we're, you know, ooh, let me get more information. This is going to help them, you know, prosecute. But I've been told, and I wanted to ask you this because you have a lot more knowledge of this than me. I've been told by therapists before, the reason that we want them, let the child talk until they're done talking, immediately run off somewhere, jot down what you can remember. Don't be like, oh, what'd you say? You know, remember what you can, go hotline, because I've been told by therapists, children usually only do the full-blown, you know, disclosure with all the details one time. Then it's going to be a watered-down version because they've already let it out. And they say, let that be in that forensic interview on video where it can be used in court, because that is going to stand in court more than the foster parent being on the stand. And that's, I think that's hard for people to understand, because when a kid starts talking, you want to gather that information to tell the hotline, to tell law enforcement, but we want that full disclosure to be in that forensic interview with the professional on video for court.
You're right. I started off this segment about cell phones. Now, we're primarily all adults in here. Who does not have a smartphone? You have a recording device. It's real easy to sit there and record as that child in your home is disclosing things. Let them talk. Don't ask questions, because then that gets thrown out of court. Record it. Immediately call your caseworker. If your caseworker blows you off, call their supervisor. If you get blown off again, because it happened to us, call the law enforcement investigating agency. Ask for the detective on that case. Because as a detective, if you give me a recorded disclosure, I'm probably going to kiss you on the cheek, whether you want it or not, okay? Because then I can put that into my report that you provided me a recorded disclosure that does not have you asking questions. I can take that to Kids Harbor, which is who Laclede County and Pulaski County uses, to that forensic interviewer. I can take them a copy of that recording. That helps them ask the questions that they need to ask. I've had kids completely shut down in forensic interviews. They don't want to talk about it again. I've had other ones tell us every detail, disgusting detail of the situation. It depends on the child. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
It's me again.
Hi, dear.
One of the things, a practical thing that you can do as a foster parent is I always email and I always include case manager, supervisor, guardian ad litem, juvenile officer. Every person that I can add to that email gets all the information every single time, because then there's a paper trail. And so those are the kind of like little practical things that keeps all of those details in order, and you don't texting. And it's also easier for the case managers because they can copy and paste from your email into their case file notes. They can't really copy and paste from their cell phone into their case file notes. So email is a great way of communication, and tagging and including every single person involved in the case appropriate. Like, you're not going to tag a school counselor or, you know, include a school counselor, but everyone on the team in every email.
Perfect. One more last thing.
Do we have time for one more question? No, we're good?
Okay.
I think we're good.
In the 26th Circuit, there is one person, and I won't disclose their title or who they are, that advocates for keeping CASA out of the 26th Circuit. Ask some questions, you'll find out who it is. Why is my question. Why is this person so adamant of keeping somebody that's there for the child out of the system? Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
It's been a privilege and an honor.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Let's thank him.